I'm going to show you a brief demonstration of part of the onboarding process. I think it's important to understand that the solution that we're offering has scope for configuration in it. Each of you, or each of the organizations that you work for, will probably do onboarding in a slightly different way. Now I'm going to focus on, I guess, a middle and an administrative part of the onboarding process. So I'm going to show you a brief demonstration involving some HR administration and some line manager interaction. And you've seen, I think, from a few of the slides how that kind of would fit into an overall process flow. But this hopefully will give you an idea of the kinds of information that can be captured and processed within the system. Now, just in terms of setting the scene, I'm logged on to an SAP portal at the moment. You don't need to run this application through a portal if you don't want to, but you will always be running it through either a web browser or in certain cases on a mobile device if you want to use a mobile device. So logged into a web browser, you can see I'm looking at a work list, a list of items. This is in the portal, but it could just be your regular email if you're using Outlook or something like that. And you can see I've got a variety of items in my inbox. I'm going to pick up various items that are basically already in progress. So I'm going to pick up some items here. Now, the reality of what's happening when we would do this is that this launching an item is going to launch an interactive form. But remember, we're in the middle of the process. So for most of you, you would have some kind of recruiting solution. It may be within SAP, or it may be that you're using another recruiting solution outside of SAP. If you are using some kind of recruiting system, then the form that you're going to see will have been pre-filled with the information from the successful applicant itself. So let's just pick the item that we're going to launch here, and we'll go into the form itself. So if I just expand the window to give you a bigger view of the information itself. So here you can see that we're looking at a form. You can see I've got a button row at the top, some capabilities for moving the form around and adding things like attachments to the form. And then you can see a main form body. Now, the content of this form body you will recognize as we scroll down as being, broadly speaking, the types of information that you want to capture in order to confirm an applicant as an employee at either a pre-hiring stage or a confirmation of hiring stage. Now, the fields that you see within these sections, you can see I have a top section here associated with the position information. It's got things like the personnel number that the system has determined for the person, the position pulled through from your applicant, the details of the manager that they're going to work for, the org unit, the job, that kind of thing. So this is basically information for type 0 and for type 1 for your employee. Now, the other sections of the form, if we scroll down, no surprises here. You will find a section with personal details and address. So this is information for your info types, like info type 2, info type 6, and so on. And again, if you've entered this information already into your recruiting system and you've interfaced that information somehow into your SAP system, this area of the form will be pre-populated. Now, you may not have a complete set of data, but you should at least find that many of the fields will be pre-populated. Now, let's imagine that you have some particular info types that you want to use for one country or form part of your business. The content of this form, the fields that you see, can be reconfigured and adapted to suit your business requirements. So I'm just looking down here. I can see I've just seen a field here, the work schedule, which hasn't been filled by my applicant information. So I'm just going to make a selection there from the drop down. You can see as we go through the form, many of the fields are validated in the same way as they would be in your info types. So your basic pay, for instance, has details of the groupings that you'd find on your info type 8 record. Let's just pick the currency in there as we go down. So you can see a large variety of sections. The sections that you add into this form are configurable. You can choose what they are. Okay, so it gives you a lot of choice to allow this process to within your own SAP HR. Will have come through. It will have been at least partly pre-populated. Check on the form. I think most of the fields are filled out, but I'm not sure if I did all of the required ones. So if If there is a problem, then the system will tell me about that. So when you click error, there is a message panel that will inform you of problems with the form. So you can see at the top, I've just got a single red message here saying that actually I haven't given the date of birth of this successful applicant. So I'm just going to, you've seen a date of birth in here. Now, of course, some of this information that you might need to be filling out in addition, it may have come from other sources. Okay, there may be information that you've already received as an attachment on an email, for instance, or another system. If so, you could attach that information using this attachments button. You can attach any file from your desktop. It will sit with this form, and it will remain reportable with this form as it flows through if you go through several stages of approval in the process. Okay, so it's always reportable. It's a very handy feature. Other things you can see on the screen just by way of kind of information. You see there's an area here where you can add links. I've just got a simple link with some information about tHRive, but those numbers of links can evolve as you go through the process. So if I send this document to a manager, he's going to out what significance is for him, etc. So the little icon here, the PDF icon, allows you to print the whole thing as well. If you want to get a PDF view of the document, you can just print it as a PDF as well. So should have basically enough information there on the screen to allow myself to carry on. If I wanted to come back to the form later, I could just save it as draft using the Save Draft button. But so far, I think everything is probably sufficient. So I'm going to click the Send button here, which will basically pass this work item on to the next stage of the process. Now, what that next stage of the process is depends on the workflow that has been configured, but as Nina illustrated, our general process flow is that once we've captured and confirmed the basic employee details, we send information to the line manager to allow the line manager to supplement this with some more job-specific conditions. So just bear with me whilst I log out of this user and log into a new user. It's a little bit slow, so just bear with me for a second whilst I log out and log in. Whilst the system is doing that, just tell you about a few other aspects of the system. As you've probably identified, the style of the application I'm showing you is similar probably to the sort of thing that you would have in ESS or MSS if you're currently using an SAP portal. We do have an alternative user interface for those who prefer a more pure web feel, something that doesn't feel like SAP but runs in a browser. It's based on JavaScript, and it runs in exactly the same way, but it just gives you a look and feel that feels nothing like SAP, a much more pure look and feel. And once I've gone a little bit further, I'll swap over to show you the contrast between the two different user interfaces. What we find is that some customers prefer a look and feel that fits well with their existing self-services, whereas others like to go for a kind of a rich UI that doesn't feel like SAP to avoid any negative connotations that some people in the business may have about using SAP. So I've now logged in as a different user here as a line manager. I'm just going to update my inbox here. I have various processes that have been sent to me, but obviously I'm interested in the information for onboarding here. You can see I've got a couple of new items that have come in today. So let me just pick up that item. The text, for instance, of these items fully configurable, so if you want to put the employee's name in the text, if you want to put additional information like the user that it's come from, the department relevant to, you can put that into the subject line of the email. And the items that we're seeing here on the work list, as I've mentioned before, they can be sent just as regular emails. So if you don't want to use the work list or the portal, you can run this whole workflow and navigation just using your desktop emailing system. Okay, so that first stage of confirming the details of this person that we were hiring, Paul Denver, there's his details you can see grayed out. You can now see there's a later section of the form where what we're asking to do is we're asking the manager to describe the access and equipment requirements of the new employee in their team. Okay. Just as a by the by, if you're wondering what this kind of strange symbol is here on the right, it can be shown or hidden, but basically this is one of those QR codes. If you wanted to launch this form or read this form on your mobile device, like your iPhone, you can just scan that code and then you can read the form on your mobile device instead. So if I scroll down the form, you can see it's got basic information about the employee, but now I can start to specify, for the benefit of the IT department or other departments, what else I want to happy here. So I could say this person is going to be working from home. They're going to need access to a shared drive. They're going to need some special roles to access the system. So maybe they're going to be a manager. Maybe they need SAP GUI installed on their machine. Okay, whatever the details may be, and so on. And you can imagine that this form could have really any number of sections. And these sections, the information that we enter, could be passed on actually to any number of different departments within your organization. And generally, they will get a form with checkboxes where they can say how far they are with the completion of these items as they go through the process. Many of the same features are available. I can save the form as a draft. I can attach something. So if I've got an email or a purchase order for a piece of equipment the employee needs, I can attach that with the form as I go on. But just to kind of show you the contrast, this is an earlier form from one of the people I was showing earlier, but this is basically exactly the same form. It's just a different person that I was looking at. This is the same form, the line manager form from the onboarding process, and this is in our pure web UI. So as you can see, the style is rather different. It's very plain because it hasn't got a custom style sheet on it at the moment. But if you want an SAP look and feel, then you could have a form that looks similar to this. This is the type of style that you see if you run a form on a mobile device. Okay, you can apply any type of styling or graphics to this that you want, but it behaves in exactly the same way as the form that we were seeing on the screen. Okay, I've timed out on that one, so I'll flip back to our main form. Okay, so I think the data here looks good. I'm going to check it and send it on, and you can imagine, broadly speaking, what's going to happen here is that really we're just continuing more of the same style of process. Okay, so I complete my part of the process. If I'm happy with it, I send it on, and it goes to the next recipient in the process. All of the users that I've shown you have access to a reporting mechanism where they can see and trace how far forms have got through the process, so you can easily monitor the success of the processes and whether there are any bottlenecks at different points in your onboarding process.